Hey everybody, it's Clint. Welcome to Sweetcast, and we're going to talk about why all men should be fired from comics, or at least you should fire a bunch of men from comics. So we're going to go over this article, which happens to feature. This is what happens if you Google female comic reader or girl reading comics, something like that. I know I've used this exact stock photo for at least one video thumbnail before, because there aren't that many, not even in the world of stock photos. So we're gonna get into this and get into some of the specifics. First, check out Fatal. It's on Indiegogo right now. This is a graphic novel, a comic, whatever you want to call it. 52 pages plus extras of some of the best artwork that you're going to see in comics anywhere. Back it today because there are only 13 days left in the campaign. So thanks very much. And it's in the link in the description below. All right. So this is the article from Book Riot, which apparently is, this is my first time seeing Book Riot. I guess they're basically like the Mary Sue or similar along that vein. Here's the article. DC Comics still has a gender problem. Oh my, what could that gender problem be? Well, they're going to talk about numbers. Now, could we at least not acknowledge the fact that numbers don't tell the full story? Could we acknowledge that? We won't. We're gonna pick and choose which industry we need to equalize numbers between men and women, because the assumption is that men and women are exactly the same. Are men and women equal, or should they be equal? Yes, they should be equal. They're human beings, okay, but they are also different. I know that is a mind-blowing statement. Men and women are different. They actually tend to have different preferences in a lot of areas, including their entertainment and what men and women like in entertainment, what they seek in entertainment, and also what they seek in employment. That's reality. But we're going to set that aside for a minute, because who needs reality, to go over DC Comics' problem. Notice there's no mention of Marvel, that Marvel has a problem. DC has the problem, just DC. So DC Comics has a problem. And I'm not referring to the recent bloodbath of layoffs at Warner Brothers that included much of the editorial staff at DC. Percentage-wise, how many of those were men? I think that everybody fired from DC was a man. I got to check this, but I think that that's possible. So that's probably progress. More men were fired. They were disproportionately fired from DC Comics. Hashtag progress. Okay, so it continues. Nor am I referring to the latest rounds of sexual misconduct accounts in the industry, in which numerous creators, many of whom have worked for DC, were alleged to have harassed, groomed, and manipulated coworkers and fans. I'm not even referring to the fact that DC is continuing to publish work by some of these creators, most notably Warren Ellis, though it's relevant. No, today I want to talk about the massive gender disparity in their hiring. Again, still, yes, really. Now, this conversation is happening absolutely everywhere, just about everywhere. In every single industry, they're looking at the numbers and asking themselves, why are there not more women working here in this place that men really want to work? Except for if you look at sanitation, if you look at prison rates, incarceration rates, we're not looking at those numbers and trying to equalize those. There are several other fields that we'll just ignore. But for some reason, comics is one of those ones, because men are jumping over each other to work in comics to a frightening level sometimes. My goodness, it is crazy. It is a cutthroat industry just for men to get in. And for women, I guarantee you're doing the same kinds of things. Maybe the rules are a little bit different, but it's still a cutthroat industry all around to get in. And there's too many skeletons in the closets all around. All right, it continues. 2020 has been a funny year for DC, and not just because it's an endless apocalyptic hellscape for the whole planet. Oh, now you can say that without being a bigot. They've had numerous anniversaries, some quite impressive. 80 years of Robin, Green Lantern, Catwoman, Da 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 da. We don't care. All right, so let's actually get into the numbers. Uh, what they're gonna do. This is how we're gonna do it. Rather than look across the board at all numbers and sort of analyze things from a broad perspective, what they're going to do is they're going to pick and choose based off of anniversary issues because it sounds nice and because it'll make their point better. Okay, so here's a stock photo of girl reading comic book. I think if you search that, you'll find two different stock photos. That's it. And why is that? Well, we could get into that too, but I think there should be some effort to look at uh, if women want, if no, if some women want there to be 50-50 representation between men and women working in comics, shouldn't there be 50-50 representation of women to men reading comics? And if you think that's really how it pans out, it's just simply not true. That is not true. And I have numbers just in my own realm. I know who I sell books to. I know who watches my videos. And I can tell you that far and wide, it's men. It's like 98% men. Those 2 or 3 women that watch my videos, I really appreciate you. I would recognize all 3 of your names. But I appreciate you. I'm really glad and thankful that you watch my videos. And I'm glad that you like comics. I really appreciate that. It's great to have you. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that you don't like comics for what they could be. You like comics for what you have read and what they have already been, stuff that you've already enjoyed in comics. I'm going to guess that that's the case. So here's a few things to note. We're going to get into the article here more, but you tell me in the comments below. A few things to note about these stats before we get started. I'm only looking at gender here, but from a glance, the creative teams are not particularly racially diverse. So there's other problematic things, but this is just gender. Okay. Number 2, I looked at 8 projects. Why not all of them? Why not the total payroll at DC Comics? I don't know. Why not look at editors? I don't know. Why not look at Marvel too? I don't know. But we're just specifically looking at DC, all of which have 40 to 70 name creators associated with them, and only noted one non-binary creator. That's because how you're gonna have to be searching really, really hard to find non-binary people that also happen to be into comics. The numbers, like, what number of representation ought there to be? Like, percentage wise, you'd have to figure out what your goals are before you know how many men you can fire in order to make those numbers work. So figure that out first. If I've missed any other non-binary creators, I apologize and will happily take corrections. Please. Number 3, many gender analysis of comics only look at writers and pencilers, but I included inkers and colorists and letters. That's so you can make the numbers bigger. So even if you're the guy or gal that is making most of the money from the one book, if there are more people because there happens to be someone flatting for the colors, that's a man, that is also counting. That's a point for the patriarchy. All right, so she goes over these anniversary issues and sort of sums things up rather than read through each of these. There we go. To recap. All right, so Robin, 5 women worked on Robin. That's 10%. Catwoman was at 25%. Joker was at 8%. Green Lantern was at 13%. Wonder Woman 30%. Flash 4%. Detective Comics 11%. Legion was 14%. All right, so overall, these massive projects average out to just over 14% female. Again, my question is, what percentage should it be? You're looking at the entire Earth's population, which is exactly what you're saying right here. As a reminder, if for some reason that's needed, the Earth's population is approximately 50% female. Actually, I think it's a little over. I think there are slightly more women on the planet. I think that's just because men die so much. I could be wrong. I'll look into that. That's beside the point, though. So you're going to look at the total Earth population, generally speaking, and you're going to apply that to people working in comics. Why? So my question is, what percentage of men to women read comic books? Uh, you got to have people that are interested in comics, that are reading comics, before you're going to be able to take some percentage of them that are interested in working in comics. The good news is that it seems like about 90% of the people that read comics want to also work in comics. So there's that. It seems like everybody I talk to that likes comics also is making their own comic or wants to someday make their own comic. You know, I'm one of them. All right, so but you got to look at that. Are your readers really coming to comics because they see women creators in comics? I don't think so. I think most people that are interested in comics are seeing, they're looking at the titles and what kinds of books you're selling. I think maybe you're going to get a better, uh, I don't know, a more even, I don't know what they call it, a bell curve when you're talking about manga, perhaps, as opposed to American, Western comics. And that's because of the subject matter. It's a little different. If you're a woman and you like what you like comics, you like superhero comics, that's fantastic. I'm gonna guess that you like them for a lot of reasons, and probably a few of them are based off of the creator's gender. I'm just gonna guess. I'm gonna go out on a limb there. But my point is, if you have more women actually reading comics and enjoying comics, you're going to have more women interested in making comics. And therefore, you're going to have more women that have gone through the gauntlet and have played the games and have cut the right throats to get through and make comics, to get in past and have arrived. All right. I used the word shameful before. I stand by that. DC should be ashamed of these numbers. Okay, so here's the problem. Here's what ends up happening. Because generally speaking, any employer is making hiring practices based off of they look for talent, they look for work, look for employees, whatever it is. They get applicants, they get portfolios, they look at these portfolios, they're going to pick the people that they can afford, make money off of, etc., that have work that's good enough, whatever. They're going to have this set of criteria, and then they're going to hire people. That list is not going to be as big as you think it might be. They're going to narrow it down an awful lot. And what you're asking for is for them to have an additional checkbox for them to check off when they're looking for new talent. So the way that I know you think that this ought to work to change these numbers is for them to specifically go look for women and train talent and do anything they can, bend over backward to get women creators in comics, and then work out the talent thing afterward. So you're sort of normalizing the talent or raising, we hired this person because they're a woman, but we got to raise them up to the correct level. So we're all professional DC, working for DC, doing our thing. Okay. That's the way that you think that it would work. But your numbers, you're still going to be unhappy with the numbers. So the real answer is, if you know what percentage of women ought to be working in comics, the easiest thing to do would be to fire the proportional percentage of men. So now you have 50-50 men to women working in comics. Just fire the men. That's all you'd have to do. Then your numbers work. Now I probably don't have to tell you why that's such a ridiculous statement, but that emphasizes the problem with looking at percentages. It is meaningless. You're looking at the total number of people working there. If you lower the number of men working there, you're going to raise the, percentage of women working there. It doesn't mean that you're a better place. It doesn't mean you're a better company, that you care, that you're progressive. None of that. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that you're hiring fewer men. You're just changing the percentage points. It's crazy. All right, so we'll get down here. They get into men in comics say no. And part of this was that men just aren't speaking up. Okay? The last thing that they did And I love how they're going to do everything they can to throw Scott Snyder under the bus for being problematic. Scott Snyder, they have you in the crosshairs, and I think he knows this. He's desperately trying not to be in the crosshairs. They've got their eyes on you, man. I see it. Uh, yeah. So number two, didn't we already read a number two? But whatever. While we're numbering things, here's another number two. Are there any men working on these books saying a word? No. Well, except for this comics pledge that was just virtue signaling. Literally everyone saw through it. Everybody made fun of it, including people on the far left. They made fun of it. They were not happy with it because of some of the terminology. She said here it was overthought. Wow, that's impressive. Overthought. From something like this, the whole point of this is to be overthought. There's no other point of it. Men in comics say no to sexually harassing women and anybody else. But even in this article, the writer actually says that some women, men, both cis and trans, can also be harassed, and non-binary people aren't a bonus, extra marginalized kind of woman. Oh, so men can be harassed. And who else can be the perpetrators of harassment? It could also be women. There's a thing too. However, I will concede that men and women are different. And it tends to be that men are going to do this more often because, I don't know, science, I guess. Okay, so it was empty promises. We totally agree on that. I agree. Um, uh, okay, so here we go. The most egregious bagged actor can post any graphic like they have to their Twitter account. Sharing a graphic and hashtag is no substitute for doing the work. And you scroll down here after she says the worst actor, and here is Scott Snyder. Now, if that is not a crosshair on Scott Snyder, I don't know what else is. So yes, that was an empty promise. It means nothing. But that's kind of what you're looking for. This is what happens when you present problems with no clear solutions, except for Fire All the Men in Comics. There are no solutions. And so, what someone like Scott Snyder wants to do is just post something saying, I'm a good person. Please don't target me. That's what it comes down to. There is no solution to this problem that you have. Make comics that women would be interested in. And, if you're really looking for more of a female audience, you've got women that are interested in comics right now as they are. You don't need to sell them more. This is by your own logic. If you're looking for somebody else, some other kind of phantom audience, make books that would interest them. Do like topic wise, why aren't you doing romance comics then? You could do romance comics. They don't sell. That's why they don't sell. Okay, but when I looked at the men who shared it, I see big successful names in the industry. Big successful names are sharing this kind of thing. They're virtue signaling. Why? Because they don't want to be in the crosshairs, because their careers can be destroyed. They can and will be destroyed. Because how do you make the percentages change? You get rid of the men. They all know this. Everyone knows it. It's the elephant in the room. If you want more women in comics, you have to get rid of the men. If you want women to get paid more in comics, get rid of these high-paid women. And by comparison, they'll be getting paid more. It's that simple. Let's see. So DC's going through some hard times. They threw Dan DiDio under the bus. Back in the New 52 I guess it went down from 12% women to 1% when they focused on the New 52. I don't know why that is, but they've changed things. Now everything that has come out in February has been 40% included female creators. 40% of their output in just February included female creators. Didn't you just spend all this time complaining about these recent releases? But 40% of their output, this is the problem with your cherry picking. Ah, this drives me crazy. Like, you got to compare apples to apples. Right here, you're saying that recently DC has been doing a fantastic job, but you just got finished breaking down all of these titles and saying, how low the percentages are. That's what happens when you cherry pick. You're just going to get the information that you want to get anyway. All right, so let's see. I think that was it. But when I look at the men who shared it, I see big successful names in the industry. Yeah, they should put themselves out of business. Basically, that's what this comes down to. Last paragraph here. DC's new senior vice president, Daniel Sherry, recently took to LinkedIn to emphasize his commitment to serving an increasingly diverse global fan base, which, again, there's no way to actually achieve this, no measurable way to achieve this. And that's why it's so frustrating for them in the industry and in every industry. They don't know how to change what is. So what they're going to do is just tell you that they care about changing what is. And they're going to have little training meetings and discuss how they're going to change what is. All these kinds of things. What they're not going to do is actually change anything, because there's nothing to change unless you just fire those darn men. All right, so thanks for watching the video. It was kind of a long one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and also check out my book Fatal. It's on Indiegogo right now. We only have 13 days left. Help support us. That $70,000 stretch goal is just right around the corner. We're less than 200 away from 69,000. So upgrading the print quality will be fantastic, and onward and upward. Thanks. I'll see you in the next video.